Michelle Simmons. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Michelle, take us back to 2015. You were on maternity leave with your first son when you started Slow North. What made you think, you know what, I'm going to start making candles?
Let's add more to the mix. Yeah. So I've always been more naturally inclined just growing up. And when you're pregnant and you have a newborn at home, I feel like you start really, or I did, like looking at the labels of everything you're bringing into your house and kind of like asking more questions about the environment you're creating for this like new baby life you're in charge of all of a sudden. And candles is one of the things like we had stopped burning because I was learning everything that was in them, what was being released in your air, and how it affected the indoor air quality. And I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've dabbled in a lot of small businesses. I majored in entrepreneurship. And so I was on maternity leave from my sales job, and I was like, let's start a side business and let's make candles that are scented only with essential oils. And at first, I didn't want to even be the one pouring them, honestly. I was going to outsource it. It was going to be an Amazon only business. And I would just design the packaging and do all of the marketing. So that's the beginning of how Slow North, was conceived. That's the beginning of it. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So you initially planned this as just an Amazon only business with private label candles.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
But what made you pivot to actually making them yourself? That's a lot more work, right?
Yeah, yes. So I wasn't a candle maker. This isn't like my background. But what we did is I got 2 different orders of 300 candles from different companies around the country, and I wasn't loving them. And I have pretty high standards for like something I wanted to put my name behind. And so I was like, you know what, let us try. I was like, I'm going to get a wax melter. I'm going to start playing with the oils because I could come up with the essential oil blends that I was liking. And I started playing around with the blend of like wax and coconut oil and making candles. And then I shifted. I was like, okay, I'm not going to buy the third-party candles anymore. I'm making them from our garage. And so I had my baby, like strapped in the baby wear, and we'd be like doing that. And then I started popping up at markets. Like there was like a parking lot market at the grocery store that let me come set up a table, just very low key, just to get some feedback from people and have the public like smell it and let me know what they thought.
What, is your garage like in a high foot traffic area?
No. No, it was like, I was living in a rental that had a detached garage. So it was just, it wasn't like in my house, but it was a separate room that I could make candles from. But then I would take my candles, and go pop up at farmers markets and stuff.
Farmers markets.
Yes.
Markets, I just hear that as the best place to get real human feedback.
I feel like it's so helpful because you get real time, feedback on a new scent blend or a size of candle or, how the price is landing with customers or, just kind of you're understanding really quickly. And then since we were so small and I was making everything ourselves at that point, I could pivot and change based on the feedback I was getting. So it helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you said that you got several hundred candle orders and you weren't loving it. And then you decide how to pivot. So I immediately had 2 questions. One, how did you get so many orders like that, first of all?
Oh, I purchased candles. I had to buy 300, they have
Sorry.
minimums. Yeah, I wish, I just woke up with orders. I purchased candles and I was putting them on Amazon and selling them. They were selling. I have some marketing background. So, so I was like working on that, but, and then I was taking even those alongside the new ones that I was making at farmers markets to kind of compare. And so then once I sold through those, I shifted away and I only placed 1 order with each company and then didn't pursue it. Yeah.
Gotcha. So going back to, I wasn't loving them, so I decided to make my own. So I kind of want to understand the psychology behind that. Did you think that you could make something so much better, or would it make it a better entrepreneur story that I'm making my own as opposed to these are just like white label candles? Like what was the, in addition to like you personally didn't love it, but like that's not a business reason, right? That's kind of like a personal preference or did you tie that into like, I have to love it, otherwise I won't fall in love with it or something? Like what was the psychology?
I think I think the performance of them, they were a little weak. Like I just felt like we were burning it. And yes, like essential oil candles are naturally lighter and they're not as, artificially fragrant as other candles, but I felt like I could make stronger candles that were still natural. You know what I mean? So I think that's where the downfall was for me on the ones I was receiving. And two, I'm kind of a hands-on person. So I think it was like a way to step into it. And then when I was doing the in-person markets, I was like, well, this is kind of fun. Maybe I don't want it to be an only Amazon business, like candles are actually kind of difficult to sell on Amazon because no one's smelling them, like it's a more difficult product to sell online. And yeah. And so I started doing that and in person. And then I actually got a wholesale customer interested because they met me at a market, so I'm making interactions locally here in Austin. And I think it kind of took me that way. And so I started making candles.
So the founder story, tying in with the business, I always think that, why is this person building this business? Like, how does it connect? So in your case, at the farmers markets, now that you're able to say, I made this, as opposed to, I bought this and put some profit margin
a
on
label
it.
on it.
Those are two different things to say, right? Did you because you were showing them side by side at some point, right? Did you notice a noticeable difference in people's reactions than when you said that? Like, I made it in my garage versus, I bought this.
Yeah. It's a lot more interesting. People, they want to ask you about how you came up with a scent blend. And, it's a lot more interaction that I can have, and it feels authentic. And I think to stay interested for me, and I don't know, it's interesting, like being more of an entrepreneur versus a founder. I lean more on the founder side of like, I want to start something as a baby and like grow it. And so I think that just resonated with me more. It was more interesting. Yeah. For better or worse. Right. Yeah.
So during these farmers markets interactions, I imagine there came a point where you thought, okay, this is not going to be a side hustle anymore. Something is happening. When did that feeling come to you?
Yeah, so it was when actually we started getting our wholesale interest, because I was like, okay, I can see this scaling. I hadn't really even considered wholesaling. You know what I mean? Like this was always going to be a very side thing. This was I did not come into this with a business plan, and this was an organically grown business. And so yes, so it was like I started this in September. Come like February, I had a wholesale account. And I was getting feedback from her. And then I started getting on some wholesale platforms, like Etsy back then used to have a wholesale platform. And so as I was getting wholesale orders in, I was getting busy. Like there were like orders to fill, and then people are being exposed to me all around the country. And then they're looking to our website, which you don't want to go back and look at my website back then, 9 years ago. But I had a website and I was, fulfilling a couple orders a week that would come in. I'd be super excited, And yeah, so there was a tipping point where it's like I'm getting so busy that I think I'm getting the feedback from customers that this might work, right? And so that was the point where I took the leap, and I left my job. My husband had a job, so it wasn't like and we had some savings, and I was like, okay, we're gonna work on this. I'm gonna full-time work on this and see how far we can go with it. So yeah.
So these farmers markets resulting in serendipity is so interesting. I just remembered when I was talking with Cooley's founder, she mentioned that somebody came at a farmers market, that somebody knew somebody who was a buyer at Whole Foods, and then
right.
I mean, she wouldn't have met that person if she wasn't going to the farmers market, and then that opened so many doors, like to many other Whole Foods.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. So again, you mentioned your sales job before. How did it feel? What was that transition like, going from a successful career in sales to becoming a full-time entrepreneur?
Yeah, terrifying. I mean, like I felt a lot of, you have all the autonomy, you have all the control over what you're doing, right? And I did territory sales before, so similar in that I owned a market. I had the state of Texas. And so it was like, that's fun. And I'm like, okay, I can now go call on customers and sell my own thing. That it's like, I made this. And so that's really where my passion is. It's like finding the fit with the market of, what I'm making and who could benefit from it. Yeah, but I mean, seasonally, candles, back then we only made candles. And so seasonally in the summer, so just about as when I was quitting my job, summer came and it's hot, and people, especially in Texas, like, no one's like, excited about a candle when it's 100 degrees outside.
Oh, that's right. That's seasonal too, right?
Yeah.
Challenging.
Yeah, but what I was doing is I was signing up for markets. We would go visit my husband's family's in Seattle, and so we would go up there every summer. So I'd like do the Renegade Craft Fair. So I was like scheduling myself with some markets around the country. I did like a wholesale show in Chicago, and so I was trying to stay busy, knowing that okay, this is seasonal, and then come Q4 we'll be ready. Yeah, and then in this time, I hired our first part-time employee, and that was also very scary to like bring someone on and feel responsible now for the sales coming in to like make up for their pay, right? That I'm committing to them. I can make so many hours a week. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in the early days, what was the mix like in the first year? Farmers markets versus Amazon versus your own website sales?
Yeah, it was more pop-up markets. Yeah. So like these artist fairs, like there'd be like flea markets sort of that would pop up at breweries and have like a lot of makers set up tables. So that kind of thing. That would be the majority of my sales because people didn't know to come to my website. You know what I mean? Other than like my friends and family that followed me on Facebook. It was like, it was hard to get in front of people. I didn't buy ads or anything like that. And then the wholesale, as that started growing, I was like, I'd be surprised by an order that like came in from California or, like Florida. I'm like, how do these people even know about us?
How did they know about it?
Yeah, I mean, the spread of being in small boutiques around the country started like the interest because they'd see it in the shop, they'd take it home. Like, I wonder what else this company makes, that kind of thing. And I feel like just really slowly built for us. Yeah.
Michelle, walk me through those early days of product development. So how did you figure out the right formulations for your candles? Were you kind of like getting the feedback, truly listening to it, going back, like I'm just going to change things up based on, what these people are telling me? Or was that mostly based on your personal instincts?
Yeah, probably more personal instincts, but definitely considering, so tons of burn testing. I mean, I did so many formulas where like all the oil would like rise to the top, just like the wrong formula for a candle. Sometimes the wick would sink, and, it's kind of like a delicate process, especially because some of the essential oils, they react differently, so everything's not exactly the same. And so that was a big learning curve for me, figuring out which oils worked. And I think one of the main like customer feedback that I was getting was on sizes and like pricing, I think I started off with kind of a larger candle that had multi-wick, and it was like people hadn't smelled it at all, so they didn't want to commit to that. Do you know what I mean? And so I was like, okay, I can do a mini tin, like a 2-ounce tin. So I was kind of like figuring out ways to overcome objections to at least get in their home. Like, if they're standing in front of me, like at least I can get you to commit to one small candle to take it home, fall in love with it, and then hopefully return to our website and get the larger version. So, yeah.
Objection handling, right? So you're learning what the objections were from those face-to-face interactions. People saying, "Oh, like that's too big. Oh, I have a smaller one."
Yeah. As a matter of fact,
never say no. Yes or a maybe. So I see here that eucalyptus and lavender has been your best sellers since day one.
It has.
First of all, did you know that was going to be the case? And what do you think it is about that particular scent that resonated so much with your customers?
That was one. It isn't the exact recipe because I don't know what their recipe was, but that was one of the original scents that I purchased, from one of the third-party companies. And so it feels like a spa. I feel like it's a pretty no-brainer scent. If someone wants to relax and light a candle, like eucalyptus lavender is a really good go-to. And so, I've introduced so many new scents, and I thought for sure like something else would take off more, but that one is just our like tried and true winner. Yeah, people love it.
I love eucalyptus everything. It's just so refreshing. So anything eucalyptus in it, I'll get it. Lavender maybe, but eucalyptus.
Yeah, ours is a good combination.
Yeah. So I'm also curious, Michelle, how you validate new product ideas. Like when you expanded beyond candles into things like therapy packs. What's in a therapy pack, by the way? Like how do you decide what products to develop next?
So that's an interesting story. So that was actually an acquisition. To talk you through our history. So we were in my garage, right? And then we moved houses. So we had a back studio so that we were in that making candles. I was about to have my second son. and was no longer comfortable with like running the business from our backyard and having our team like coming in, using my restroom. It just felt very personal. And so I was like, we have to have a space for like our team to work from. Because by then we had 2 employees, part-time employees. And so I drove around and I found this retail center near my house that they were subleasing the very front part of the unit. So I was able to I put a big curtain up, and this guy was like, in a lease still, but he was subleasing areas of his suite out. And so we were able to just rent the very front portion and have a little mini retail shop plus our production. So that was like the entry into retail and having like a brick and mortar space. And so with that, I'm going around your question, but like, as we were filling out the products to carry in our curated, like handcrafted retail shop area, I found this company. This woman was making that weighted eye masks and the neck wraps. And so they're natural pain relief. So it felt very aligned. They're filled with unscented lentils, made in Austin. And so she was making them, and she put out this notice that she was closing her business and wanted to move on and do something else. And so we reached out to her because they've been selling so well. And so we decided to roll her business up into Slow North because it felt very aligned. You're like relaxing, you have a candle, and then you have a weighted neck wrap warmed up, cozying on your neck. It felt like a good pairing. And so we learned how to sew. And I thought back then that I would be the one doing it. I was like, oh, this is no problem. Like I can come back here.
At this point? At that point,
well,
who's we?
Me and my 2 employees, or a couple employees that we have. But they didn't know they weren't stitchers, And so I was like, I can sew, like I can do this. And so that's how we started making therapy packs, is because we saw customers responding to it in our store, and the opportunity presented itself. So. Yeah.
So it seems like at this point the business is getting interesting, where I kind of want to question some things, because like earlier you said that you're an entrepreneur at heart. You want to build a business. Sure, now the business is building, but all of a sudden you find yourself hand making a lot of things, which I don't know if you kind of envisioned, because you probably didn't, because the business started as like this is Amazon private label. I'll just do the branding part of it, and it'll be awesome, like Liquid Death. It's water, but branding.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But all of a sudden you're stitching things now. And
that was short-lived.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What am I thinking? That was short-lived. That was my rationale of like, okay, well, I'll sew them in the meantime until sales pick up, and of course, then we can hire and train someone. But my point of that is that I had no one on staff when we purchased the business from her that was going to be able to do it. Do you know what I mean? She was doing it all herself, so it wasn't like a team came with her or anything. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is like reacting to, I see something that's selling well and I move towards it. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. And no, I mean, my intention is to get out of the handmade part of it. It's just in the interims, I always jump in and I'm the one doing it. Yeah.
So you went from making everything yourself to having a team of like 11 people. Like how did you approach those first crucial hires? How did the team grow? Like how long did it take?
It grew. Yeah. So our business so let's see. So 2 years into our business, we moved into our shop. So I've been in that brick and mortar for 7 years. And right prior to COVID, we signed the lease on a warehouse space to make everything off-site. So we were making everything in that one suite. We were outgrowing it because of our soft goods line. Our eye masks and neck wraps got picked up by Anthropologie and by it was like Crate Barrel. Like we were having like big brands.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. And so organically, because it has to be discovery on Instagram or like in a boutique, because I didn't have an independent sales rep pitching for me. I mean, it was just very organically.
And when you discover you on Instagram, do you get a DM or do you get an email or a phone call? What do you get?
We would get emails. Yeah. Okay. We would get emails saying like, hi, I'm a buyer for this, and so with that growth, I felt comfortable thinking like, okay, we're outgrowing this. We need a bigger space. So we rented a warehouse. It's like 1.5 miles from our retail shop. And then everything shut down, and so kind of changed like retail in general for us. We did a lot of like curbside pickup and all of that. But so now that's how we're operating. We have 2 spaces. We still have that one, the warehouse, and then we have our retail shop. And my preference is us all under one roof, because it felt, it's like, because everything's handmade in Austin, it felt so nice for people to walk in and like literally see us making candles, you know, like it felt like, oh, this is like where everything's made. And it feels a little disconnected now, but I'm excited. In June, we're going to be rolling them all back together into one space.
So your husband was working full time while helping with Slow North, right? So
Yes.
I wanted to ask how you balance the dynamics of being business partners and life partners.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's 9 years now, and I think there have been phases of those 9 years where he has actually worked full time with Slow North, and then has gone back and like in the corporate world. Um, you know, it's hard. I think it's hard as an entrepreneur or business owner to turn it off in general, and then when your husband is also in it with you, I mean, you know, it's been like peaks and valleys as far as how well we've handled it, honestly, especially with kids. But I feel like now it's like setting the boundaries of like, okay, this isn't work. This is our date night. This isn't our, you know, like, let's work on the business night, and trying to be like more mindful of, can this wait? You know what I mean? Like, do we have to talk about this now right before bed, or can we like do it during work hours? Right. Trying to keep like more of an office time. But yeah. It's a challenge. I don't think I have the answer for you. Yeah.
I meant to ask you, I forgot. I think Slow North is such a cool name.
Thank you.
And I just like, you know, when I say hear Slow North, I'm thinking, oh, this is like a Arctic making parkas or something like that.
Yeah.
My wife makes fun of me. Like, I didn't know what this brand Five Below was. Like, I'd never been in there. So I was thinking, well, this is probably like North Face or with like a cool Norwegian. Then we found out it's just things less than $5. I'm like, that's the opposite of what I had in mind. But Slow North sounds like that. How'd you come up with that name?
Yeah. So I always knew I didn't want it to be my name. You know what I mean? Like Michelle's Candles or something. And I wanted the brand to be more than candles. And so it encompasses, for me, it's like slow living. So everything's handmade, natural ingredients, kind of back to basics. So that's the slow part. And then North, we're all wayfinding our way through life. And it's like a directionally positive way that we're heading. Part of our like tagline is like one small change. And so it's kind of that sentiment of like, slowly we're improving, and it doesn't have to be pretentious or like all at once, you know, just
Got it.
kind of a lifestyle. Yeah.
So North is the direction and slow is the way of living. Okay. So I was kind of visualizing a slow way of living in Greenland or something.
Well, I'm from San Antonio, so I'm from South. Everyone's always like, are you from up north? No. Yeah.
So, you know, entrepreneurship is very romantic. You know, a lot of people kind of think of it as, oh, if I had my own company, if I had my own brand, you know, people just sometimes don't realize the ups and downs and the emotional roller coasters. And I saw that you mentioned having some $0 days in your first year at the retail location. How did you push through those challenging early days?
Yeah, that's a good question. And even still, I mean, honestly, like you know, we're 9 years in, and I definitely think from the outside, like you said, like, oh, like everything must be going great, you know, and it's like, you have so much responsibility. Everything creeps, right? Like, back then overhead was lower, but I still had rent. You know, I, for better or worse, I'm optimistic, and I always think that I have, like I can figure it out. Not that I don't have the answer now, but it's not like out of my reach. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like one more thing or whatever. And so I think that mindset, has let me like continue on, but also has like enabled me to like accidentally get over my skis. Do you know what I mean? Because of that, I lack a little bit of like the realism of like, okay, but really, like, you know, this is the trend year over year. And I'm like, well, yeah, but like next month we're going to, you know, it's going to change because, you know, and so I think that's been a lesson to learn, especially in the last 2 years. Post-COVID for us, our wholesale has declined, and we had kind of a boom, like everyone was home. They loved burning candles at home. Our therapy packs were great, like care package gifts. And so we had a boom in our business. And so I scaled up thinking like, okay, like, here we go. Like our business is big now, big, and it has declined a little bit. And I mean, not a little bit, a lot bit. And it's been in the wholesale section. And so that's been hard to forecast and like wrap my head around. How do we, navigate that forward, and how do you forecast that? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Michelle, so it's been 10 years, 2015,
Almost. Yeah.
2025.
Yeah.
What was working for you in terms of marketing in the early days? And if you were to start the candle brand now in 2025, like what would you do differently to get the word out?
Right. I would focus. I think I was leaning pretty heavy on the wholesale, and I would go more D2C and like maybe almost skip the wholesale. Like that's where our growth is happening now. You have more control, your margin's better. I mean, there's just like so much more. You have the direct relationship with your customer. And I mean, looking back on it, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have like been like, okay, this is great wholesale business, because I was thinking we were diversifying by all kind of like having, over 1,000 like small business boutiques that are carrying our stuff around the country, but they're all kind of impacted the same way, macroeconomically, right? So when some of them are struggling, really a lot of our customers started struggling. And you see on the Instagram like closing and whatever, and you're like, okay, like we're actually all in the same boat. And so I think just having the direct relationship would have been probably what I would have done. And then you can price accordingly. You know what I mean? Like I'm pricing for wholesale, but you wouldn't have had to do that. So yeah.
So in a D2C world, direct relationships with the customers, I imagine you may have some kind of a creator approach. Like for the creators who are watching and listening, what would you look for when you're considering collabs with them?
Yeah. So naturally minded. I mean, we do a lot of collabs through different ambassador programs and have affiliates and all of that. And I've leaned heavier into that in these last 2 years, because I'm like, that's really where like our market, mostly we're on Instagram, and it's, people that are healthy and like looking for non-toxic swaps and just trying to like clean up their homes. We're a perfect match for them. And so we've had a lot of success finding the collaborations in those spaces. And it's been fun. I mean, I feel like it feels like a more authentic connection, when you're like actually like aligning with their audience, and it feels like a natural sell for them, and it just works for everybody. Yeah.
Now, what's the best type of candle content that converts best on Instagram?
Our best one was, she's a yoga influencer, and she's doing like beautiful poses and stuff, but she's like meditate. She has like our candle as like on the foreground, you know what I mean? And so it's like showing a lifestyle but like our candle is like an accent or like an enhancer, to like the practice that she does every day. And I'm like, oh, I like that a lot. Right. Yeah.
So 10 years of entrepreneurship for a candle brand. If you were to start all over again, you can pick any category that you want. Knowing everything you know now, things you don't want to do, you don't have to do. Just pick the things that you want to do. What would you pick? What category would you pick?
Wouldn't you want to do something that isn't breakable, that's lightweight, that you don't have to smell? I mean, like if you really were like trying to start a business that's very profitable, or you know what I mean, you'd think like those are kind of like, I feel like disqualifiers or something. I feel like, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I'm so deep in candles right now, but Candleland. But I think that when we came out, we were kind of like in the front of a move towards non-toxic candles, right? Like I feel like now you see a lot of that, or more. I feel like people that weren't aware are now becoming more aware and like asking questions about the ingredients and things. And so I think we were lucky that, in terms of like the history of our brand, we were able to kind of like present that as an option to customers early on. And so I think whatever I did, I would want to be on the forefront of something, kind of like ride the natural wave that we were able to like benefit from. But yeah.
Michelle, my final question. Top 2 problems giving you a headache right now, and top 2 priorities you're excited about for the year.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I alluded to one problem. So it's just forecasting. I think figuring out where everyone feels, economically and like how the shops that we're selling to are affected. And so kind of figuring out like where is our new baseline, in terms of the mix, because we used to be 50% wholesale of our total business, and now we're like down to 30%, so it's a big shift for us. The other problem, I mean, is it a problem? For me personally, I feel like it's more of like figuring out the CEO level work versus the stuff that actually keeps you busy. Do you know what I mean? Like I put out a lot of fires, and I think for me working on my like separation so I can zoom out and be able to like focus on the higher level stuff. I mean, that's just kind of been like an ongoing area of growth for me, I'll say, and then priorities, I'm super excited about transitioning our spaces. We're moving the retail space into our studio, so we'll have a whole experience where people can come in, see us making things, shop our products, and then we teach candle making classes.
Oh.
And so, so there's like a hands-on workshop experience that we do for our guests. And so I'm just like really excited about all the efficiencies we'll be able to get from that. And just the improved like customer experience when they visit us. Yeah.
Oh, now you reminded me of another Austin-based company I talked to, Antonelli's Cheese.
Kindle. Yeah.
So, I talked to John.
Okay, yes.
And he told me their events experiences business is growing faster than. So then you mentioned now, candle related experiences. Is it like candle making classes and things?
Yes. Yeah. We teach them 4 days a week. Same. That is huge for our retail shop. So like for brick and mortar, that's a main driver, getting customers in to like experience our brand and everyone. I mean, I feel like we're such a screen, like so many people are just on screens. So physically making something and then like leaving with a candle, like we let people like custom blend their scents. And so there's just a satisfaction. Everyone walks out beaming, they're so happy with themselves.
Yeah, that's interesting, because with now AI, I think people are going to be looking for more memory creating moments, and experiences provide that. So, maybe it's just going to grow even more going forward.
That, I mean, honestly, that thankfully has picked up huge. Like that has been helping us offset the decline in the other areas, because I mean, it's so fun. And I feel like we've been doing it for 7 years. And so we're like SEO wise, we pop up when people search for something like that in Austin. So yeah, that's a great part of our business. Yeah.
Michelle Simmons, thank you for sharing your journey with me.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed visiting with you. Yeah.